Everyone, to OpenLine, we are talking movies tonight. We have with us two film critics with the Nashville Music City Film Critics Association, Sean Atkins, who's the president, and Cory Woodroof, who writes for several publications. Talking movies, we kind of set the table in the first portion. We are going to go to Fablemans here in a moment, that movie, which is getting a lot of talk, but we'll take a call here. Let's go to James. Hello, James?
Yes.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
We just want to know what they thought about the new Christmas Story movie.
Is there a new Christmas Story?
Yes, A Christmas Story Christmas. I have purposely not seen it yet because I want to watch that with my family. We watch A Christmas Story every Christmas. You know, they do the 24-hour marathon. So
absolutely, on TBS for years.
Yes, so I want to watch that with my parents, A Christmas Story Christmas sequel. I've not seen it. I've heard good things about it, though.
So okay, that's there. So what's the deal? There's a remake of it, or is it a sequel?
It's a sequel. Yeah. Ralphie, the guy who played Ralphie in the original, is back as Ralphie, and he goes back home because his father died.
Oh, so, who bought the lamp?
Yeah.
I watched it the other day, I think. It was on HBO Max, so it's like right at home now.
So it's out there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's kind of what you would expect from someone trying to make a sequel to A Christmas Story like 40 years later or so. It's just kind of like, they'll just do these like little callbacks where it's like, really? It's like, it's cute when they're 8, but like when they're in their like late 40s, and it's just like, you know, it's more of like a midlife crisis.
Well, I hope this guy doesn't get his tongue stuck on a pole, but yeah, we'll just kind of watch and find out. That's great. You want to watch that with the family? I think that's great. All right, let's go through some of these other movies. We have a list here of some of the award movies, but people are talking about as far as awards go. I'll start with The Fablemans. We have a poster for it. Tell us, what is The Fablemans? What do you think about it?
So we've seen this trend recently of filmmakers wanting to make movies about their upbringing and how they got into movies, and probably unpack some family dynamics and some personal stuff on like the big stage. Kenneth Branagh probably had the most recognizable one last year with Belfast, which was a best picture contender and did well with the Oscars with winning Best Original Screenplay. So this is like Steven Spielberg's version of that. But if you're into movies, you know that Steven Spielberg has been unpacking his kind of family trauma and his parents through a lot of his movies, like Close Encounters of the First Kind and E.T. both have very strong components of Spielberg, kind of a younger point in his life, dealing with his parents' divorce. And what he's finally done is like sat down and kind of told his way that he saw it while he was coming up. So it's kind of interesting that you have like probably the most recognizable film director of all time, dealing with such an intimate part of his life that's been known about, but it's been known about in a way that he's been able to kind of control through fictional narrative. So this film is kind of him kind of spilling the beans a little bit on, this is actually how I got into movies, and this is actually what it was like to kind of grow up with my parents and kind of go through some of the things. And it's, you know, for a director who's really used sentimentality as kind of a way to kind of make the world better comparatively to what he was kind of seeing growing up, like it's a very, it's a very sweet, real movie, but it's not really sentimental. It's very kind of, the emotions that kind of come out of it are very earned through tough things that are happening for him when he was younger. So you really get to know Steven Spielberg in a way that you just don't often get to know with like these like cultural luminaries. I mean, Steven Spielberg, like he's the household name of household names, and it's really incredible to see him. He teams up with Tony Kushner, who's a famous playwright and did Angels in America on Broadway, and wrote Lincoln and West Side Story last year with Spielberg. So I think it's the best thing I've seen this year. It's a stunning achievement for a director who kind of wrote the book post-1975 on how we make movies in a big way. I mean, Jaws changed the film industry. Like, it just kind of, we went from New Hollywood and having everything be real and gritty and of the times to something a little more kind of mixed, where it's like, these are real things you can be scared of, like a shark in the water, but like, it's more fantastical and kind of brings in these big sweeping emotions and things that audiences love on kind of a grander scale. So I'm a huge fan.
So that's high praise. You're saying it's the best thing you've seen all year.
Yeah. And I've seen like 130 movies.
You've seen a lot of movies.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of movies. And so when we're talking about awards, obviously, Sean, this is way up. When you think this is going to be nominated for Best Picture, it's one of those kind of things, maybe.
I think it's the front runner.
Yeah.
for this award season. I honestly think I don't see anything beating it. It's a very sincere memoir. You know, it also shows, with all the family drama and everything, that movies are the perfect escape for those things in our lives. And there are some early scenes in the film that really capture that. And the first 2/3 kind of builds up to what I think is an impeccable third act that is better than most movies. What's Spielberg just pouring his heart into this movie, just great performances from top to bottom. The kid who plays the main character, Sammy Fableman, I think he's in his early 20s, I think. He might even get nominated for Best Actor. He's that good. Even throughout the movie, we see Sammy Fableman make these home movies. He gets his friends together and everything. And the home movies that you see in this film are better than most films you'll see this year. That's how good they are. So,
wow. See, hearing you all talk about this, that's so exciting. Now, is it coming out this weekend? When can everybody see this?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Wow. So it's out tomorrow. Okay. Well, The Fablemans. That's huge. We started with a huge one. I'm going to go to the next one here. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And again, I think we have a movie poster for it. Sean, I'll let you kind of open with this one. What are your thoughts? This is a big movie, right?
It is. It's the most successful movie from A24, an indie studio. The best way to describe this movie is they throw the whole kitchen sink in. It is action-packed. It's a romance. It's a drama. It's a family drama. It's a comedy. It's everything in one 2.5-hour movie. Michelle Yeoh, who might win Best Actress for her performance in this, is sensational. Even for a movie budget around $25 million, it looks better than most blockbusters that cost $200 million with all these green screens around them that are so obvious. I think this one took everyone by surprise, and it has had so much momentum going into the award season. I don't think anyone back in the spring saw this movie doing the business it would do, and then the conversation around it still being as strong as it is right now. And I think if there's one movie that is going to challenge the Fablemans this award season, it is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Wow, no, that's a huge statement too. Jamie Lee Curtis is in this. And that's kind of surprising. I was surprised to see that. I've actually seen this movie. It is all those things, action, all of those things. It's also quite deep. Like, there's some deep stuff in there. And so it's got a lot going on, but what are your thoughts about it?
I think it's really, really good. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot. And, you know, it's fascinating to see a movie that's just this frantically paced, and this just like throwing so much at you. It's just making so much, you know, homage to so many different types of movies, and the characters go through all these different multiverse realities, and it's just, the sense of humor is very peculiar. You know, but sometimes you just kind of concoct the right formula, and the right movie comes along at the right time and just catches people off guard and kind of surprises them. And I think this is what this film has done, and that's why it's been successful. It's kind of telling a very familiar story about kind of your dynamic with your child, but it's kind of coming from a fresh perspective. You know, I couldn't have told you that the guys who made Swiss Army Man, which was a film that came out in 2016, where one of the characters is played by Daniel Radcliffe, and he is a corpse that powers himself by flatulence. And
it's a very weird movie.
It's a very weird movie.
Very weird.
And now they're in the Oscar consideration. But
so they're the ones behind this movie.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that was a weird movie. Okay, this movie, there's a lot going on. It's deep. It's got all those things. Yeah. Okay, very interesting. A lot of action.
And we also saw with the legs that Top Gun Maverick had at the box office, similar but on a smaller scale to Everything Everywhere All at Once, where you know, A24, they make movies that are cheap to make and they don't make as much money. They either probably meet the budget or they break even, but this one had legs, and it's A24's most successful movie, the first movie they've ever made that has grossed $100 million at the box office. It's their crowning achievement for a studio.
That's really impressive. Okay, very interesting. All right, the next movie on my list was Glass Onion. We already looked at Glass Onion. That's coming out again this weekend. Let's go to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. That's next. Who wants to take that?
Well, I know
There's
you may.
the thing
There he
right
is.
there.
There's the latest Pinocchio. Again, people may feel, another Pinocchio. Are we really doing this again? We just did Pinocchio in September with Disney Plus, with Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks playing Geppetto. That Pinocchio, I think, scared some folks with how real it looked compared to like to the Disney cartoon. This Pinocchio is not going to be like any of the other Pinocchios you've seen. All 50 different Pinocchio takes we've had over the years. But no, I mean, if you know Guillermo del Toro, you know he is like a force in filmmaking. Won Best Picture in 2017 with The Shape of Water. You know, his latest film is stop motion, and he did Nightmare Alley last year, which is kind of his style, but he's never taken on animation before, and he's taking on like the most painstaking process of animation with Pinocchio, and I think it's fabulous. Again, like I saw this about a week and a half ago, and it's just like a movie I've continued to think about since. It's just, this is not the type of Pinocchio movie that you're used to. I mean, you know, I think the Disney 40s film kind of set the template, and people have kind of touched on some of the darker themes that have kind of came from the source material. And again, the 40s Pinocchio is a very strange movie. It's very weird. Yeah. And this film doesn't try to do anything that isn't true to Del Toro's vision. It's set in Italy during World War II and during Mussolini. So it's like the backbone of it is kind of a parable about fascism and people rebelling and not just like following in line with things. And Pinocchio in this film is not very precious. He's very rebellious. He's kind of got a little bit of an attitude. Like Geppetto's a little bit more of a, you know, kind of a hard-edged guy, and you know, he's been through some stuff, unlike Geppetto in the other films where he's just kind of a sweet old man kind of just dancing around. But
is it a kids movie?
It can be.
Yeah.
You know, if your kids are cool, I think they'll like it. But like, you know, if you're a 4-year-old might be a little bit bothered by this. It's definitely a darker, you know, take on the story. But, you know, I think for a general audience, it should be totally fine. It's just very unexpected. You just wouldn't expect to get this type of movie from the Pinocchio story, but that's just kind of the genius of what they pulled off.
Fascinating. All right, Sean, they want me to go to break, but do you have a word on that?
Yeah, this is definitely not your father or your grandfather's Pinocchio, but I think what really makes this Pinocchio film stand out from any other iteration we've ever seen is that you feel for the character of Geppetto, and I think every other Pinocchio adaptation has had a hard time shedding a light on that character himself and the tragedy he goes through, and it's just Guillermo del Toro likes to get the dark edges of these stories, especially in fantasy, and just to him shedding a light on Geppetto and trying to grieve for what he has lost. And then, not to mention, there's some great original music in this, fantastic score. Ewan McGregor voices the cricket, probably one of the best voices in an animated film in a long time. Cannot recommend enough, and that one is actually playing at Regal Cinemas right now.
This movie is?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so it's out right now.
It's not at AMC theaters, but it is at Regal Theaters in town. I've seen the poster outside the theaters. Would highly recommend seeing this in a theater. It'll be on Netflix here in a couple weeks, but I would, like Glass Onion, this is another Netflix movie, recommend seeing it in the theater.
Fascinating. All right, those are great movies right off the top. We got 3 or 4 great movies. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll come back and talk about some more. Take a break. Be back right after this.